Hey Peyton, nice to see you again on this beautiful day. And this time with a quote by Ram Dass, where he says, "It is important to expect nothing, to take every experience, including the negative ones, as merely steps on the path, and to proceed." How do we proceed from our experiences, Peyton?
Great quote. Good to be back. This is an important pointer at a certain posture toward the things that arise in our lives, because we're going to have some things that we like. We're going to have some things that we don't like. We're going to have some things with positive energies. We're going to have some things with negative energies. We're going to get what we want sometimes, and we're going to not get what we want sometimes. And what's contained in this quote is a mindset about going with the flow, so to speak, swimming along with the current of the world that we find in our lives. And it is a certain golden mean that is the balance that he's pointing toward. I think it starts off with an assumption that the person receiving this quote, pondering it, is sort of on the normal end of the spectrum in terms of going with the flow, which is that we struggle with it. It's difficult to accept things that come up that we don't like. We tend to have this mindset of attachment to things going how we want them to. But the world doesn't give us what we want always. Things don't always go as planned, and we don't always not get what we don't want too. Sometimes things come up that are a real frustration or a hindrance, or something happens we weren't expecting, or we didn't price in, or whatever. And a good starting point for dealing with whatever happens is acceptance. A good starting point is, first, let's make peace with reality. First, let's just come into the now. Let's recognize all that is here, all that has happened, all that has already arrived, because everything that's arrived and everything that's happened in the past, non-negotiable. And then let's proceed. And let's recognize in that word proceed that a part of what it implies is that nothing is permanent either. Nothing that is bad, that is negative, that we're not getting what we want, or that we're getting what we don't want right now, is going to last forever. And when we have stuff that we do want, we can't hold on to that either. And so it's, I think, a bit of flexibility in our mindset toward how we receive what comes up for us. And if we have that little bit of flexibility with it all, with all of these impermanent, uncontrollable arisings, and the reality that has already presented itself right now, that's already here, that's already arrived, then from a place of acceptance, we can then flow better with it. We can actually do what's within our sphere of influence more smoothly and in a more energy efficient way, because we're not wasting so much energy trying to drive with the brakes on, so to speak, trying to struggle against what's here rather than flow in response to what's here. What does this look like in a practical level in your life? How do you recognize when we are not accepting what's here? And how do we, when we see that we are in a state of resistance, what is the trick, or what is the practice of returning to, all right, I'll just go with whatever's here, and I'll do the next thing, and I'll proceed with what I've actually encountered right now?
Beautiful. Yeah, we sometimes come into the situation where we are confronted with things we don't like. We don't like to be not respected. We don't like to hit our foot or our knee somewhere, and we don't like the pain that comes from it. And then resistance arises in ourselves. We say, "Oh, damn it, I didn't want this. I want this to go away." And every time there's pain, there's also a lesson to learn, in my opinion, because if you reflect on the pain which arose, there is some progress depending on your reflection. And if you drop the resistance, which naturally arises at the first time, then you have to recognize it. You have to raise your level of awareness and say, okay, this is a wake-up call actually to be more aware again, because obviously I didn't look around very good. I didn't see the obstacle to come, and then I hit myself. So just from this simple experience, there is this possibility to learn from it, and we harness this possibility to learn from it even faster if we drop our resistance, because then we are not in a state of denial, but in a state of acceptance. So this is the magic word we are looking for. We have to accept everything which is, to work with it in a better way. Because if we still resist and we try to push it away, reality will always come back to us. Reality will always catch up. And for example, in a when I was like working with my dad and he was like holding a piece of wood and was turning on the saw and mumbled something to me, and I was just holding it as well, and he expected me to understand what he said, but already took action. And then we said, oh, I expected you to hold it really at the same measure. And I said, I didn't understand you. You have to take responsibility to communicate better. And he said, oh no, you have to listen better. And I said, oh, like that, go away. But there I had this resistance, this pain because of the miscommunication which arose. But if I would have dropped my resistance against it, I would not only have learned to drop my ego a little bit, to don't mind these kinds of small stuff, to don't sweat the small stuff, but I also would have learned how to build up a drywall, like, but then this experience just went away just because of me not taking the drop of, not me dropping the resistance I had against this experience, which I didn't like. I just try to flee. But then it's like, you will lose something if you just flee. The faster you can get back to connecting again, the faster you can get back to, okay, I'm here, I want to help, I want to serve, and I want to learn, and I want to grow, the better learning will be as well. Despite it being beautiful to learn from your dad how to build stuff, sometimes it will be painful. Because there's this saying, okay, you think you're enlightened, then there, go spend 1 week with your parents.
and what you point to is actually really easily missed too. This idea that there's some degree of societal conditioning or even implied common sense that the way we learn from something that we don't want is to resist it and to just spend time just in super contraction, frustration, anger, I hate the way reality is mode, as if that's actually a necessary ingredient for us to be capable of recognizing cause and effect in the future, or capable of making a different decision the next time we are presented with it, or capable of proceeding in correcting the situation, acting in the present to course correct what we now see. But when we pay attention to the reality of our lives and what is it like when I'm encountered with a situation and I react with incredible resistance and frustration, and I'm so angry with the way that reality is, am I more effective or am I less effective at learning from the situation? And there, surprisingly, it's not that straightforward. I think that you do want to notice, you want to observe, you want to have awareness. That part is necessary in order to learn. But actually getting super pissed off and worked up, believe it or not, it does lead to this effect of denial that you point out. When we're too caught up in our resistance over something that we don't even want to look at it, we don't even want to think about it. Believe it or not, this is a lot of times what can cause us to repeat our mistakes because we're so averse to even remembering or looking at this situation or even bringing awareness to the situation, including where it can make us averse to bringing awareness to the ways that our own decisions led to this effect. Our own actions led to this effect. We're so caught up in, I don't want to think about it. I want to look at it. I'm so mad. I'm so mad. I'm so mad. I just want to distract myself with something else. In fact, this can be a hindrance to learning. And of course, there is a happy medium with learning from our experience where we do need to bring visibility, awareness, and recognition that, oh, hey, I made this error here and it led to this effect. We do want to be honest with ourselves if we want to learn, but we don't want to take it too far to where we can't even stomach looking at it, or we can't even stomach the next time this comes up, taking a step to think and pause before we act. This can cause us to act without thinking because we are too averse to looking at something to think. And in the same way, reacting or responding is a better word, responding wisely to what has arisen that we don't want. This is another area where it actually doesn't tend to help us to get infuriated by this situation in order to respond with the next step. So, for example, there was a time when I had a cat of mine pee in a corner in the house, and I was so mad that I cleaned it up. I was so pissed off at the situation. I was so worked up. I was so upset that I didn't even want to look at the stuff to actually fix the problem. Like I was so pissed off that like I didn't even want to like ask ChatGPT like what is the cause and effect of this? What do I do about it? Blah blah blah. I just wanted to forget about the situation because I'd made myself so mad. I was so resistant to reality in that moment. It made me so frustrated, and I was totally disagreeing with reality, and it was counterproductive to me actually resolving the situation. And at the same time, of course, this is a golden mean sort of a situation. We don't want to blind ourselves to things that actually are not aligned with our goals and interests or whatever. Like I don't want to live in a house that smells bad all the time, and so that's valid and it's legitimate. We can recognize that, but let's come to first an acceptance of reality. Let's unilaterally surrender all of our disagreements with what's already here. We've got to just drop it from our side. Reality isn't going to do some other way because we're extra pissed off. It's got to come from our side in terms of what's happened in the past and what's here in the now. But now that we're here in the now, if we can free up our energetic cycles via acceptance, if we can release, surrender, not have to operate from clenched fist mode, but actually be loose, have a hand that can move and grab and shift, same with our mind, we are much, much more capable of responding. It's much more energy efficient. And so we can do it in a much better way while we're actually having a more positive impact on all of the people around us in the process. There's less collateral damage when we're operating from a place of acceptance first, move forward and flow with respond whatever needs to be done second. You don't have to, if you see a mess on the ground, you don't have to get infuriated by that mess in order to clean it up effectively. It actually doesn't help clean it up. You don't clean it up faster. It doesn't actually empower any part of that process to go smoother. You're just getting yourself worked up in your head. You're just kind of poking yourself with a thorn in your own side. Not to say we can just, it's easy. It's simple, but it's not necessarily easy. But at least we can just recognize that we're not helping anybody by resisting the present too much and too hard and for too long. At some point, we're better off letting it go because we can be so much more effective in how we respond to it and how we learn from it.
And in terms of letting it go is also in a way rechanneling that energy, you know? You don't store up that energy and compress it until it blows up again at some point because your anger just like explodes out of you. You will be better able to channel all that energy into doing something productive to proceed. And there's also this this grandchild of Mahatma Gandhi. Arun Gandhi wrote a book which is called Anger is a Gift, because he describes the process of his grandfather using the anger against the systemic corruptions to form a kind of peaceful movement and channel that anger, that energy into something which changed the world for the people living there. So you can change your own world if you do it peacefully. This is the message behind it, you know. You can use that energy which arises if you don't store it up and hold it in, but if you let it go, and then you can channel the flow of this energy which comes up when you see which is unjust, when you see things which shouldn't be as they are, but at least you could proceed with effective changes. You will have a much clearer mind to see what is possible to change. And then this acceptance is part of it, how to proceed best. And in my opinion, if you're too tense, then you won't see the other beautiful options which open up and how you could solve the problem.
That's right. Anger, or I would say defensiveness, closes us off to creativity. And a lot of times, creativity can provide solutions that are easier and more effective than what we would do if we just had very, very narrow view. And the point you made about anger is super valuable to bring into the equation because it's so much more nuanced than it seems at first. Even the last thing I was saying, when I was saying, let go of resistance, accept reality, flow with things, allow things to be there. Yes, all of that is in the long run true. But one of the things, ironically, and in a very nuanced way, that we need to allow to be there is anger itself. It's kind of
Mhm.
weird. It's kind of like, but didn't you just say this? Yes, it's a little bit paradoxical, but in fact, first of all, anger is a part of reality. Anger is something that will, in fact, arise. The energy of anger, and this is where it gets pretty nuanced, is the energy of anger is going to come, it's going to flare up, there's going to be things that happen, and our own physiological and psychological system, our body mind, is going to, in fact, be a part of reality that's going on. We are not a computer, and we are not something that we can wish to be a computer. Our own response, our own energies is a part of what needs to be accepted right now. The anger that it's arise right now, this is here. This is reality. If I'm disagreeing with being angry right now, it doesn't actually help. In our emotions, in our anger, if we don't have an acceptance of that very emotion of anger, then we trap it. What you resist persists, as they say. And it's true. It's like experimentally true. It's like true in a way that, don't take my word for it being true, but actually pay attention to what happens with anger when you allow the anger to be there and you feel it in your body, and you don't just intellectualize it, but you feel the energy that's probably going to be in your chest, in your shoulders, maybe in your upper back, this feeling of having like a flexedness in your energetic system, as well as a forward leaning action response tendency in your body energetic system. Anger arises, anger is real, anger is important, anger is valid. And if we try to deny our anger, if we try to cover up our anger, if I feel anger and I'm afraid to feel anger, or I'm not willing to feel anger, this is when we resist it and it persists. We might bottle it up, we might shove it down, but it's not going to be sustainable. It's not going to be healthy. We're going to keep that negative energy buried in our system because we don't allow it to flow. And so there's a balance where if you allow things to flow, you also don't have to do it in a very, you don't have to allow it to consume you in an energy inefficient way. So there's this balance. Like there's wise anger, and then there's also telling ourselves a story in our head that's getting us keeping on working up, worked up, worked up, worked up, this resentment, this rumination, and these thought patterns and these identities associated with anger that becomes chronic. We haven't let it flow, erupt, express, and then calm like the weather, but in fact, we're replaying this negative playlist in our brain about our thoughts that leads to more emotions, which leads to more thoughts, and they kind of talk to each other and self reinforce and keep bottled up. So, anger is very nuanced. It's something that we should not, absolutely should not deny. We are literally animals. Like we're actually primates out here. We're going to have things that we encounter. We're going to feel the emotion of anger. Things are going to arise. Anger is one of the things that is going to arise in the now. It will already have arrived sometimes when we pay attention, and resisting it, not being willing to feel that anger, not being willing to feel it in our body, in our energetic system, it actually is counterproductive. It traps it. And so we want to allow the negative emotion of anger to fuel us, to be energy, to burn up, to express in a way that's understanding and non-destructive towards ourselves and others, but allow it to flow in a way that is healthy and channel it in a wise way, and allow all of the weather of our mind and body and energy to flow, including anger. This is something that took me a while, actually. I was so big on non-resistance, allow things to be, yada yada, which is an important corrective to our conditioning, which is constantly reminding us about what we shouldn't like and what we should want to push away, and how bad that person over there is, and how much of a victim I am for this thing having happened. But on the other side, if we take the wrong lesson and we try to have an unhealthy or imbalanced or unrealistic relationship with our energy, with our anger, and not ever let it arise, we're not going to do ourselves any favors there either. It's not actually going to be the healthiest way for our system to flow. So allow anger to arise and allow it to pass away. Let things come and then proceed. There is an impermanent nature to anger, and we have the capacity for it. All of these emotions can come kind of like weather in the sky, and the sky is fine, and we can allow these to come and pass. And we can be mindful and intentional about the ways that we channel these emotions, the ways that we allow them to flow, in order that we use them in productive ways like Gandhi, or in a more day-to-day level, we might use it to fuel our workouts,
Mhm.
and not necessarily in harmful ways, which would be, for example, suppressing it, pushing it down, and then outlashing when you're having a stressful day all over the person who's unlucky enough to be in your way, which is kind of the common strategy that people apply toward their anger. How do you think
Mhm.
about this balance of letting emotions come, letting them go? What does that look like to have a wise relationship with anger when stuff that's triggering comes up in our lives inevitably?
What I think is also referring back to the quote in terms of not expecting anything, letting arise everything, even the negative stuff, and taking the next step on the path means you know where the path is, you know which next step you have as an intention to take. You first have your mindset and then you have your intention and you have your vision about a life you want to live. And probably that also includes connection and love and care and empathy. And probably that also includes health and wealth in whichever way. And what I think about is you have the intention to be healthy and to live in connection. So you can train to channel all these energies which come to you, like an Aikido pupil in this kind of martial art of Aikido. The goal is not to hit your enemy or opponent, but to await anything which he aggresses towards you. And every punch, every hit, every movement, you will redirect in a roundabout way around to whichever direction you see fit for a possible redirection of this energy so that you can just refer it away from hitting you and you can just use the energy of your opponent to destabilize the opponent and not yourself. You have this firm standing within the dynamic you can create in taking in the energy, not resisting, and then redirecting it into a different channel. And you say, when you train your body, or when you work out, this is a perfect ventil for redirecting the energy of anger or stress to just vent it off, release it, and then even do something good for your body and become more healthy with that. And a bad way would be to drink alcohol all day long and sit in a dark corner.
That would be a bad way.
Yes, and that is unfortunately a way people deal with it as well. So this is like the opportunity for us in any way to transform any experience into something which is creating a realm of possibilities which suits us and which helps us grow when we redirect it, when we use it wisely, when we say, okay, I take this, but I will not be destabilized by it. I will not be hit by it. I will just move around it or move it around about me and destabilize the event which comes so that the event or the opponent doesn't hold any power anymore or whatever he wants to give you. But you hold the power if you have learned how to do it. And this is actually the mindset which this quote also carries with it is a step in the training path to be more like an Aikido master, to be able to rechannel and redirect these energies, which inevitably come because life moves as a river and we will come to points which hurt. But sometimes we just also see it before it hurts and then have the ability to move around it because we
Mm.
learned it. And how do you think about that?
My mind goes to what is upstream. What is upstream of these circumstances where something arises and I feel myself almost automatically disagreeing with what's here. And this is where toward the beginning of the quote, he says, expect nothing, let go of our expectations. When I have an expectation that this time in the future or this thing that I'm about to do or this place is going to be some kind of a way, then I'm almost teeing up a disagreement with reality because reality is going to arise how it does. And I can have my own, I've already decided that I want reality to be like this. which is an expectation. And if we have this and it's solidified already, and then if reality is different than that, then there's this disagreement. There's a setup for resistance. But what would be smoother is to have the mindset of, I want reality to arise exactly as it does. I'm going to still put my energy into intentional action and movement. But given that, I'm going to fully agree with reality. I want reality to be exactly as reality wants to be. I want reality to arise exactly as it does. I'm going to radically agree with whatever it is that the universe decides to put right in my awareness right now, and try to have less expectations of anything being any particular way. Or if I have an anticipation of something being a certain way, try to consciously hold that very loosely. Try to come back to this overall intention of aligning myself with the universal nature, aligning myself with the will of the divine. That, I think, is the baseline, that mindset of radically saying yes to whatever's going to be, and not having a fixed, clenched fist around an expectation. This, I think, can allow these acceptances to allow the flow, to allow the let it be here, flow, respond, allow emotions to arise and proceed. I think this can be so much more natural without so much expectation about the way that we think we need things to play out. Because ultimately, we don't even know how we want things to play out. We can look in our own past and we see how many bad things that we didn't want, that we were so upset about, ended up being exactly what we needed for our growth or for some other thing that was even better than what we are expecting. How many times when we did get what we want, did it lead to our suffering and challenges and things that we really, really didn't want? And we didn't know that this thing that we thought we wanted, we really didn't want what would it would ultimately lead to, or this thing that we didn't think we would want really led to what we really, really needed and didn't even know to ask for.
Mhm.
And so this whole mindset of, oh, this is good, this is bad, perhaps this is a way of being that doesn't come naturally to me. I'm not a natural in this realm at all, but it's something that I definitely aspire to orient myself towards more and more of the time. I'm better than 0%. I'm a long way from 100%. Let me get 2% better at aligning myself with whatever arises and holding my expectations very, very loosely and softly this week. How about you? What are your intentions out of this?
Yeah, in a similar fashion, there's always room to improve in any dimension. So it's like this interplay between trying to have more light in your head and a lightness in your life, and therefore trying to not resist anything which arises and not be attached to any kind of expectations I have, or expectations how I would love to things turn out, and also not have any judgment about whether it's
Hmm.
good or bad. So, on the other hand, I'd love to see some progress on some projects that really come from the core of my being. So, it's on one way growing, and on the other hand, it's like accepting that sometimes the weather is not in my control. So, it's this dichotomy between things that are in my control and these ones I want to shape. These ones I want to progress and proceed on with my intentions set. And the other things I cannot control, I don't want to judge about. I don't want to resist them. And I don't want to be attached to any kind of expectation towards these things. So these are my intentions for this upcoming week, Peyton.
Very nice, man. Well, really appreciate you sharing. Great conversation. This topic is so I feel like I need reminded and recalibrated of this topic. It's so conditioned, it's so natural to get into a mindset of feeling like we need the universe to obey us. And it just doesn't work. We get ourselves super twisted up in knots trying to do that. And so having a good balance in all of these things, holding the paradox of walking and moving and pouring my energy into what's in front of me with intention, while at the same time having this steadfast will of alignment, will or desire to align with reality and not to struggle against it. This is the way of being that I'm looking to channel more and more. So thank you very much, my friend.
Sounds like having a firm belief, but being aware of not having to waste energy in resisting.
Agreed. Agreed. I could go for a little more energy efficient rides.
Thank you very much, my friend, and see you next week. Appreciate you.
Likewise, my friend. Appreciate you. Talk to you in the next one.
Bye bye.